And even the people who have accepted the system, like Maki's mother, we're suffering under the Zen'in clan. Too many of you are way too comfortable admitting that you like Naoya. Y'all better start explaining yourself in the comments. This chapter was a tough one for me. I very much dislike Naoya. It's very hard for me to work past the fact that I have to now analyze Naoya's very disgusting behavior and listen to him. Just that. But I'm a professional, so here we are. I have one main qualm about this whole thing. It's very evident that Gege wanted Naoya to come back. It was all set up, it was foreshadowed, but the one thing I really have an issue with is the fact that Maki killed probably hundreds and hundreds of people. Mai literally gave her life to go and give her sister this sword that allows her to kill with cursed energy, kind of. She put all of herself into a cursed tool. So you're telling me after killing hundreds and hundreds of people, absolutely laying waste to them with the sword, that Maki just straight up just forgot about it, forgot about the sword after using it that whole fight, and presumably also used it to kill the rest of the Zen'in clan that were not at the estate. So Naoya is just an exception. Bit hard for me to believe. This is definitely colored by my disdain for Naoya. It's very hard to like him. I understand, and I got comments a lot about this, is that Naoya as a character very much represents the old guard, the higher ups, all of the past clans, and the things that they stand for, which is apparently misogyny, lack of empathy, and arrogance. But there is actually one good thing about Naoya coming to Jujutsu Kaisen now, because as basically the sole remaining part of the Zen'in clan that is neither Megumi nor Maki, he has a unique set of knowledge, and that is the fact that Maki's mother was actually the one who killed Naoya. If you recall back to that chapter, Maki went to kill her mother last, which is kind of fucked up. Not to say that I think her parents did a great job. I think that her dad was definitely very abusive and her mom was very complicit. However, imagine the horror of being in the estate, knowing that everybody is dying around you and that you're having to experience this. The anxiety that builds up, knowing that you're going to be last. I don't know if Maki did it on purpose. I don't know if Maki just so happened to have done it this way, but being last is probably the worst torture that you can inflict on somebody when you're committing that big of murder. However, in Maki's mother's last moments, she vocalizes the thought, "I'm glad I had you too." Oh boy, that hit hard then, and it hits even harder now. Because of the fact that Maki has largely been an outcast in the Zen'in clan, and she had cut off her family because of it, she never really got to experience that sort of acceptance and love and just support from her family. She got her support from her friends in Jujutsu High, Gojo, weirdly enough, and that's it, really. So her finding out that her mother killed Naoya in her stead is very shocking news, because this is a woman that has been complicit to her abuse, whether actively or passively, for her whole life. And we can dig a little bit deeper into the Zen'in clan with this information, because the Zen'in clan has this facade of a clan that is well put together. The women have their role, the men have their role. They're very powerful. They have a store of various curse tools. They hold a seat that's very important for votes and changing and shaping Jujutsu world and society. And here we are with somebody who is complicit in that system, committing murder against, I guess, basically the heir of the clan, and thinking back to herself saying, "I'm glad I had my twins." It means that even the people who are complicit, and even the people who have accepted the system, like Maki's mother, we're suffering under the Zen'in clan. This is a very, very poignant moment where we realize that even those who are complicit within the system may have just been victims of abuse themselves. Even though they stayed, they never felt secure or happy in this place. And Maki's mother felt so strongly about that in her last moments. She felt only gratitude that her daughter killed her whole clan, and she was killed by her daughter as well. If that doesn't speak to the depth of abuse of the Zen'in clan, then I really genuinely don't know what is. And Naoya is the embodiment of that abuse and that misogyny and that perpetuation of what is in the past, trying to worm its way to the future and failing. But it's gonna take one last stand. So let's take a look at the fight between Maki and Naoya and Noritoshi. We get a really intense characterization of Naoya in this one line where he says, "So cursed spirits feel pain. I've exorcised so many and they were all hurting, huh? I feel so sorry." Not. He really does communicate like an emotionally stunted 12-year-old. It's really, really strange to make those leaps to understand the pain that he has caused and to suffer it for himself, and then to deny that sort of empathy that he feels and switch it out with bravado instead. Haven't delved deeply enough into Naoya's psyche, and nor do I wish to. All right, let me just go on a psychoanalysis deep dive here real quick to know if this is some sort of defense mechanism so that he doesn't feel weak, which could very well be the case, or if this is genuinely just somebody who lacks the empathy and lacks the emotionality to be able to feel those things and allow himself to feel those things for someone other than himself. And that sort of very myopic, tiny world where he lives in his own emotions and motivations is really the thorough driving force of him being so obsessed with Maki. This whole time, this whole chapter, the past 2 chapters, all he has said is that he is going to beat Maki and that he is so very focused on fighting her because he lost to her. And I can only imagine this is a massive strike to his ego that he lost to Maki, somebody he believes is an imposter, somebody he believes is somebody below Toji, the person whom he maybe begrudgingly looks up to. All right, let me just go on a psychoanalysis deep dive here real quick. It feels like Naoya is trying to justify his place in the world as somebody who has seen and felt true power in Toji and by extension, probably Gojo. He feels insecure about his standing as basically the head of the Zen'in clan. He manifests this by making other people around him feel small, by putting Maki down, by putting other people down, by saying things like women are only good for their face. And I think that type of behavior with Naoya is deeply rooted in just how thoroughly insecure he is. Because while Naoya is shaping up to be actually quite an interesting cursed spirit and have a very interesting technique and be a better adversary than he was when he was human, as a human, he wasn't extraordinary. He was good. I believe he was first grade sorcerer at the very least, but the gap between first grade and special grade sorcerers are a massive leap. It's like when you're grinding in RuneScape and to like hit level 99, you're just like gotta really work for it as opposed to hitting like levels 1 through 10. There's a big gap. I don't know how many people here have played RuneScape. Anyway, it genuinely seems like Naoya is just fueled by the hatred that he feels for people who make him feel inadequate. I think that he might hate himself a little bit because of the admiration that he feels for Toji and how that power is bestowed upon Maki. This is all probably very obvious to a lot of you, but Naoya is fucking miserable. He is so miserable and in so much pain that he turned all of that emotion into him becoming a cursed spirit. He's only evolving, and we'll get to that later, because right now I actually want to talk about Noritoshi and Maki. And oh boy, what I really hope for Noritoshi and Maki here is to hone themselves, because as basically the rejects of the other 2 clans, they are the perfect match to fight against Naoya, who is the embodiment of the institution that they're trying to escape. While Noritoshi is not particularly against the conservative faction of Jujutsu world, he is now taking their side because I think he's now trying to feel out what is right to him, which go off, King, you know, I support it. And Maki's powers, despite how long ago it may feel, you know, about 40 chapters ago, Maki's powers are brand new to her. She is still discovering and developing her powers, and she has gotten a lot of, seems kind of crass to call it practice, but it's going to be quite an exercise for her to wield her powers to the full potential. I think this is a really good place for Maki to be at right now, because she is at the point where we saw her turn into nearly a god, an unkillable force, mowing down an entire clan, to where she is at in terms of the world at large. Her teamwork with Noritoshi is still a little bit clumsy. Noritoshi almost shot her. She knew that Noritoshi's arrows weren't going to hit. She basically just picked up Naoya and threw him to the trajectory of the arrows. Maki calling out for Noritoshi to shoot the cursed womb is fantastic teamwork. While they don't have that chemistry yet as somebody who has fought together for a long time, they are developing it, and it's very endearing to watch because it's also like watching the future of the houses work together and evolve in front of our eyes. And I honestly worry a little bit about his future because of his level at this time. It seems as if the way that Gege framed this entire thing is that Noritoshi is kind of down for the count. While I hope that really is not the case, he was already burnt out by that piercing blood attack, and then he was slow to react to Naoya's punch. He's probably injured right now, and I could only hope that he's okay and he'll still be in the fight, but it feels like Gege is setting up this 1v1 with Naoya and Maki. And while that is a fight that I really want to see, bro, give Noritoshi a fucking break, man. I feel bad for him. And with that 1v1, we have to talk about Naoya's evolution, because that's crazy. Anybody else think that this is crazy, where he just turned into a cursed womb and was like, boom, power up, tinfoil hat time? Every video has to have one. If you have read Bleach, surely your Bleach neurons somewhere deep in the recesses of your brains activated, right? Like, there's no shot that you didn't look at Naoya evolving and go, hollow. The way that Gege drew Naoya is so very classically Bleach. The face, the skeletal structure, it feels very, very reminiscent of the way that Bleach does hollows. I will always enjoy an homage to Bleach, but this means we have something else to worry about, because there's 3 evolutions to hollows in Bleach: Gillian's, Ajuka's, and Vasalorde. A very, very humanoid-like figure. And I'm not saying that Gege has fully ripped off the Bleach evolution scale, but it would make sense, because Naoya turned into a cursed womb very, very quickly. The time between Noritoshi attacking the cursed womb and the cursed womb forming was a very small amount of time, but Naoya still managed to do an evolution. Only halfway through though. If you look very, very closely at this panel, you'll see that Naoya already is creating a semblance of a humanoid figure, just a little bit more monstrous. And that's quite worrying, because fortunately for me and unfortunately for my roommate, I just introduced her to JJK recently and we started watching the anime, and I just watched the Cursed Womb episodes. And the cursed womb that was allowed to form in that episode, in those chapters, turned into a very, very humanoid figure. So Naoya, being a special grade 1 sorcerer, turning into a curse, and turning into a curse via a rather, 1, violent death, and 2, deep, deep drive for vengeance, it feels a lot like Naoya is going to become a very, very powerful curse. And unlike the Kashimo versus Akari fight, there is no option of turning Naoya into an ally. Naoya is an incredibly irredeemable character, because not only does he embody everything that's wrong with Jujutsu Society, he actively seeks it out and makes it a part of his personality. He's like the worst stan ever. If you'd recall, in one of my last videos, I said the old reign must fall. The old Jujutsu Society will crumble and they will eventually die out, be eliminated, and Naoya is part of that. And to keep somebody who is the personification, the active personification of everything that is wrong with Jujutsu Society would be an antithesis to how Jujutsu Kaisen is written. That means Naoya just has to die, right? Please? I'm begging you, Gaga. And I think that Naoya is going to have a very, very powerful third evolution. And I think that whenever he has that, if he has that, it should also be a further evolution for Maki, whether in the way that she handles her power, her confidence, or her techniques. I think that this should inspire growth within her. And if I can ask for a little bit more, I would like for Noritoshi to also be able to grow. His speech about him being left behind while Maki grows stronger and everybody else grows stronger was a really, really poignant speech to me, because everybody knows what it feels like to feel a little bit left behind, right? It's painful, it's sad, and I want more for Noritoshi now that he is trying to be a better person, trying to find his way. And honestly, there's a very interesting juxtaposition to Naoya and Noritoshi, because Noritoshi could have very well headed down the same path as Naoya. I never think that Noritoshi would be as bad and as awful as Naoya, but they have the same trait of being people who have adapted the conservative Jujutsu Society into their personalities. Naoya is the mirror to Noritoshi, who never let go, and Noritoshi now is the divergent path because he has abandoned his clan. He never fought to be accepted again. He simply looked for a new way forward, and Naoya is stuck in that. And I wonder if Noritoshi looks at Naoya and goes, I could have been that. And that's a little bit extreme because Naoya, I think, is on the extreme side of things. But if you think about it, they represent very, very similar things in Jujutsu Society. And while Noritoshi was always a lot more dignified and a lot more respectful and a lot more like the type of person to think for himself, he could have headed down that path too. And I think that's genuinely something to think about. I just want to take the time to say and thank you everybody for your support. I know that I don't like to do very long intros or be very verbose about the way that I feel about YouTube, but genuinely reading your comments and watching my channel grow for something that I am completely passionate on is so very surreal, and I don't want to cry, so I'm going to stop. Thank you everybody for the time and the thoughts that you have shared with me. Know that I always appreciate them. I hadn't thought about this outro that much because I just got really emotional. So here's a video that YouTube recommends, and subscribe, hit the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.